Hello, students. Welcome back. Here we are into book 6, which is called The Princess at the River. Odysseus, as you remember, is currently piled under some leaves and buck naked and has nothing. He has absolutely nothing. He's going to need some help. Good thing they live in Greece where there's a lot of hospitality. So we're going to start this book by reading about a princess. He has landed on the island of Scheria, which is the home of the Phaeacians. And the Phaeacians are a seafaring people. They build ships. You're going to see a lot of shipbuilding imagery in this chapter as well, because they do a lot of that. And you will also see an interesting encounter between the princess and Odysseus. So let's begin Book 6, The Princess at the River. Just a reminder, students, you should be following along as I read. This is not a replacement of reading. It is a help with your reading. Mrs. Jackson and I, we need you to actually be reading the words with us so that you can become better at reading, and just listening is not enough. You need to actually see the words yourself as well. So make sure your book is open, in my book, to page 99, and let's continue. Far gone in weariness, in oblivion, the noble and enduring man slept on. But Athena in the night went down the land of the Phaeacians, entering their city. In days gone by, these men held Hyperia, a country of wide dancing grounds, but near them were overbearing Cyclopses whose power could not be turned from pillage. So the Phaeacians migrated thence under Nausithous to settle a new world across the sea, Scheria Island. That first captain walled their promontory, built their homes and shrines, and parceled out the black land for the plow. But he had gone down long ago to death. Alcinous ruled, so this is the king of the island, and heaven gave him wisdom. So on this night the goddess, grey-eyed Athena, entered the palace of Alcinous to make sure of Odysseus's voyage home. Again, divine intervention. She took her way to a painted bedchamber where a young girl lay fast asleep, so fine in mold and feature that she seemed a goddess, the daughter of Alcinous, Nausicaa. We meet Nausicaa, the princess. On either side, as Graces might have slept, her maids were sleeping. The bright doors were shut, but like a sudden stir of wind, Athena moved to the bedside of the girl and grew visible as the shipman Dymas's daughter, a girl the princess's age, and her dear friend. Ah, disguise, okay? So Athena is disguised as Nausicaa's good buddy friend, and she is going to talk to Nausicaa in the form of this girl. In this form, grey-eyed Athena said to her, "How so remiss, and yet thy mother's daughter, leaving thy clothes uncared for, Nausicaa, when soon thou must have store of marriage linen, and put thy minstrelsy in wedding dress. Beauty in these will make the folk admire, and bring thy father and gentle mother joy. Let us go washing in the shine of morning. Beside thee will I drub, so wedding chests will brim by evening. Maidenhood must end. Have not the noblest born Phaeacians paid court to thee, whose birth none can excel? Go, beg thy sovereign father, even at dawn, to have the mule cart and the mules brought round, to take thy body linen, gowns, and mantles. Thou shouldst ride, for it becomes thee more, the washing pools are found so far from home." They did not have your everyday washer and dryer. In fact, they didn't have electricity. So in order for Nausicaa to wash her clothes, she would have to go down to some pools down by the sea to wash her clothing. And so Dymas's daughter, that's who she thinks Athena is, says, "Hey, your clothes are dirty and you need to get married. Go wash your clothes, girl." That's basically what she said to her, okay? So on this word she departed, grey-eyed Athena, to where the gods have their eternal dwelling, as men say, in the fastness of Olympus. Never a tremor of wind or a splash of rain, no errant snowflake comes to stain that heaven, so calm, so vaporless, the world of light. Here, where the gay gods lived their days of pleasure, the grey-eyed one withdrew, leaving the princess. Athena left. And now dawn took her own fair throne, awaking the girl in the sweet gown, still charmed by dream. Down through the rooms she went to tell her parents, whom she found still at home, her mother seated near the great hearth among her maids, and twirling out her distaff yarn dyed like the sea. Her father at the door, bound for a council of princes on petition of the gentry. She went up close to him, and softly said, "Dear, my dear papa, could you not send the mule cart around for me, the gig with pretty wheels? I must take all our things and get them washed at the river pools. Our linen is all soiled." And you should wear fresh clothing, going to council with counselors and first men of the realm. Remember your 5 sons at home. Though 2 are married, we have still 3 bachelor sprigs. They will have none but laundered clothes each time they go to the dancing. See what I must think of. So her pretense of going to her dad is, hey, you have sons who need to get married. I need to wash their clothes and mine. You think that Dad is going to not see past this? She had no word to say of her own wedding, though her keen father saw her blush. Said he, "No mules would I deny you, child, nor anything. Go along now. The grooms will bring your gig with pretty wheels and the cargo box upon it." He spoke to the stableman, who soon brought round the cart, low-wheeled and nimble, harnessed the mules and backed them in the traces. Meanwhile the girl fetched all her soiled apparel to bundle in the polished wagon box. Her mother, for their luncheon, packed a hamper with picnic fare, and filled a skin of wine, and when the princess had been handed up, gave her a golden bottle of olive oil for softening girls' bodies after bathing. Nausicaa took the reins and raised her whip, lashing the mules. What jingling, what a clatter! But off they went in a ground-covering trot, with princess, maids, and laundry drawn behind. By the lower river where the wagon came were washing pools, with water all year flowing in limpid spillways that no grime withstood. The girls unhitched the mules and sent them down along the eddying stream to crop sweet grass. Then, sliding out the cart's tail abroad, they took armloads of clothing to the dusky water and trod them in the pits, making a race of it. All being drubbed, all blemished, rinsed away, they spread them piece by piece along the beach whose pebbles had been laundered by the sea, then took a dip themselves, and, all anointed with golden oil, ate lunch beside the river while the bright, burning sun dried out their linen. Princess and maids delighted in that feast. Then, putting off their veils, they ran and passed a ball to a rhythmic beat, Nausicaa flashing first with her white arms. So obviously, Homer here is trying to show that this is a beautiful princess. So Artemis goes flying after her arrows flown down some tremendous valley side. Tegetos, Eurymanthos, chasing the mountain goats or ghosting deer, with nymphs of the wild places flanking her, and Leto's heart delights to see them running, for, taller by a head than nymphs can be, the goddess shows more stately, all being beautiful. So, one could tell the princess from the maids. So she's like a goddess amongst these maids. Soon it was time, she knew, for riding homeward, mules to be harnessed, linen folded smooth, but the gray-eyed goddess Athena made her tarry, so that Odysseus might behold her beauty and win her guidance to the town. It happened when the king's daughter threw her ball offline in mist and put it in the whirling stream, at which they all gave such a shout, Odysseus awoke and sat up, saying to himself, "Now, by my life, mankind again! But who? Savages are they, strangers to courtesy, or gentlefolk who know and fear the gods?" That was a lusty cry of tall young girls, most like the cry of nymphs who haunt the peaks and springs of brooks and inland grassy places. Or am I amid people of human speech? Up again, man, and let me see for myself. You ever talk to yourself? Yeah, Odysseus just did. He pushed aside the bushes, breaking off with his great hand a single branch of olive, whose leaves might shield him in his nakedness. Now here's a fun epic simile. So came out rustling, like a mountain lion, rain-drenched, wind-buffeted, but in his case at ease with burning eyes, who prowls among the herds or flocks or after game, his hungry belly taking him near stout homesteads for his prey. Wow. Again, compared to a lion. This time, though, there's a young girl that he needs to be able to stop and get information from and maybe get some help. Odysseus had this look, in his rough skin advancing on the girls with pretty braids, and he was driven on by hunger, too. Streaked with brine, that's seawater, and swollen, he terrified them, so they fled this way and that. Only Alcinous's daughter stood her ground, being given a bold heart by Athena, and steady knees. She faced him, waiting. And Odysseus came, debating inwardly what he should do. Embrace this beauty's knees in supplication, or stand apart, and using honeyed speech, inquire the way to town and beg some clothing. In his swift reckoning, he thought it best to trust in words to please her, and keep away. He might anger the girl, touching her knees. So he began, and let the soft words fall. Now you gotta realize, if someone were in need, he would actually physically embrace the knees of someone who he needed help from. But here, Odysseus uses something different. He uses his speech, his honeyed words. And you have to remember that a hero, he will rely on his words, on his speeches, in order to get things that he needs, especially Odysseus. He is the master talker, the master tactician. And here's what he says to Nausicaa. Mistress, please, are you divine or mortal? If one of those who dwell in the wide heaven, you are most near to Artemis, I should say, great Zeus's daughter, in your grace and presence. If you are one of earth's inhabitants, how blessed your father and your gentle mother, blessed all your kin. I know what happiness must send the warm tears to their eyes each time they see their wondrous child go to the dancing. But one man's destiny is more than blessed, he who prevails and takes you as his bride. Now, there's a lot of things he could have said. Okay, there's a lot of ways to gain favor. What does he do? He asks her if she's a goddess or a mortal. Interesting. But he has a lot more to say. Never have I laid eyes on equal beauty in man or woman. I am hushed indeed. Oh, that's ironic because he's talking. So fair one time, I thought a young palm tree at Delos near the altar of Apollo. I had troops under me when I was there on the sea route that later brought me grief. But that slim palm tree filled my heart with wonder. Never came shoot from earth so beautiful. So now, my lady, I stand in awe so great, I cannot take your knees. Yeah, he compared her to a palm tree. Interesting. Ladies, how would you respond to that? This man who compares you to a goddess and then compares you to a palm tree. Wonder how that would go over. Well, let's see what happens with Nausicaa. And yet my case is desperate. 20 days yesterday in the wine-dark sea on the ever-lunging swell, under gale winds, getting away from the island of Ogygia. And now the terror of storm has left me stranded upon this shore, with more blows yet to suffer, I must believe, before the gods relent. Mistress, do me a kindness. After much weary toil, I come to you, and you are the first soul I have seen. I know no others here. Direct me to the town. Give me a rag that I can throw around me, some cloth or wrapping that you brought along. And may the gods accomplish your desire, a home, a husband, and harmonious converse with them. The best thing in the world being a strong house held in serenity, where man and wife agree. Woe to their enemies, joy to their friends, but all this they know best. So he does ask her, hey, can I have a piece of clothing? Okay, I'm kind of naked here. But he does it in his honeyed speech, of course. Then she of the white arms, Nausicaa, replied, Stranger, there is no quirk or evil in you that I can see. You know Zeus metes out fortune to good and bad men as it pleases him. Hardship he sent you, and you must bear it, but now that you have taken refuge here, you shall not lack for clothing nor any other comfort due to a poor man in distress. The town lies this way, and the men are called Phaeacians, who own the land and city. I am daughter to the prince Alcinous, by whom the power of our people stands. Turning, she called out to her maids-in-waiting, Stay with me! Does the sight of a man scare you, or do you take this one for an enemy? Why, here's no fool so brash, and never will be, as to bring war or pillage to this coast, for we are dear to the immortal gods living here in the sea that rolls forever, distant from other lands and other men. No, this man is a castaway, poor fellow. We must take care of him. Strangers and beggars come from Zeus. A small gift, then, is friendly. Give our new guest some food and drink, and take him into the river, out of the wind, to bathe. They stood up now and called to one another to go on back. Quite soon they led Odysseus under the river bank, as they were bidden, and there laid out a tunic and a cloak, and gave him olive oil in the golden flask. Here, they said, go bathe in the flowing river. But heard now from that kingly man, Odysseus. Maids, he said, keep away a little. Let me wash the blind from my own back, and rub on plenty of oil. It is long since my anointing. I take no bath, however, where you can see me, naked before young girls with pretty braids. Well, he has some sense of decorum there, doesn't he? Oh, good. They left him then, and went to tell the princess. And now Odysseus, dousing in the river, scrubbed the coat of brine from back and shoulders, and rinsed the clot of sea spume from his hair. Got himself all rubbed down from head to foot, then he put on the clothes the princess gave him. Now here's some divine intervention. Athena lent a hand, making him seem taller and massive too, with crisping hair and curls like petals of wild hyacinth, but all red golden. Think of gold infused on silver by a craftsman whose fine art Hephaestus taught him, or Athena, one whose work moves to delight. Just so she lavished beauty over Odysseus's head and shoulders. Then he went down to sit on the sea beach in his new splendor. There the girl regarded him, and after a time she said to the maids beside her, "My gentlewomen, I have a thing to tell you. The Olympian gods cannot be all averse to this man's coming here among our islanders. Uncouth he seemed, I thought so too before, but now he looks like one of heaven's people. I wish my husband could be fine as he and glad to stay forever on Scheria." You know, we call that a crush, okay? A very, very shallow crush that Nausicaa has on Odysseus here. Ew, yeah, she's like 16. He's like close to 40. But you know what? It is what it is. "But have you given refreshment to our guest?" At this the maids, all gravely listening, hastened to set out bread and wine before Odysseus, and how ravenously that patient man took food and drink, his long fast at an end. The Princess Nausicaa now turned aside to fold her linens. In the pretty cart she stowed them, put the mule team under harness, mounted the driver's seat, and then looked down to say with cheerful prompting to Odysseus, "Up with you now, friend! Back to town we go, and I shall send you in before my father, who is wondrous wise. There in our house with him you'll meet the noblest of the Phaeacians. You have good sense, I think. Here's how to do it. While we go through the countryside and farmlands, stay with my maids behind the wagon, walking briskly enough to follow where I lead. But near the town, well, there's a wall with towers around the isle, and beautiful ship basins right and left of the causeway of approach. Seagoing craft are beached beside the road, each on its launching ways. The agora, with fieldstone benches bedded in the earth, lies either side Poseidon's shrine, for there men are at work on pitch-black hulls in rigging cables and sails and tapering of oars. The archer's craft is not for the Phaeacians, but ship designing, modes of oaring cutters in which they love to cross the foaming sea. From these fellows I will have no salty talk, no gossip later. Plenty are insolent, and some sea dog may say, after we pass, 'Who is this handsome stranger trailing Nausicaa? Where did she find him? Will he be your husband? Or is she being hospitable to some rover come off his ship from lands across the sea, there being no lands nearer? A god, maybe? A god from heaven, the answer to her prayer, descending now to make her his forever? Better if she roamed and found a husband somewhere else. None of our own will suit her, though many come to court her, and those the best.' This is the way they may make light of me, and I myself should hold it shame for any girl to flout her own dear parents, taking up with a man before her marriage. Note well what I say, friend, and your chances are excellent for safe conduct from my father. You'll find black poplars in a roadside park around a meadow and fountain, all Athena's, but father has a garden in the place, with this within earshot of the city wall. Go in there and sit down, giving us time to pass through town and reach my father's house. And when you can imagine we're at home, then take the road into the city, asking directions to the palace of Alcinous. You'll find it easily. Any small boy can take you there. No family has a mansion half so grand as he does, being king. As soon as you are safe inside, cross over and go straight through into the Megaron to find my mother. She'll be there in firelight before a column with her maids in shadow, spinning a wool dyed richly as the sea. My father's great chair faces the fire too. There, like a god, he sits and takes his wine. Go past him. Cast yourself before my mother. Embrace her knees. And you may wake up soon, at home rejoicing, though your home be far. My mother's feeling much depends. If she looks on you kindly, you shall see your friends under your own roof in your father's country. So what Nausicaa reveals here is that Odysseus can't just follow her to the palace, because the people there are not only jealous of wanting to be married to Nausicaa, but they're also a little xenophobic, being afraid of strangers. So she says, you stay behind in this grove of poplar trees after I leave, and then you go to the palace, and you don't grasp the king's knees, you grasp the queen's knees, which is very interesting, considering this was written by Homer, a man, during a time that was predominantly male-dominated in culture. And yet here he has Odysseus grasping the knees of the queen, and that's an interesting thing. At this, she raised her glistening whip, lashing the team into a run. They left the river, cantering beautifully, then trotted smartly. But then she reined them in, and sparred the whip, so that her maids could follow with Odysseus. The sun was going down when they went by Athena's grove. Here, then, Odysseus rested, and lifted up his prayer to Zeus's daughter. Again, a prayer. Hear me, unwearied child of royal Zeus. Oh, listen to me now, thou so aloof, while the earth-shaker wrecked and battered me. May I find love and mercy among these people. He prayed for that, and Pallas Athena heard him, although in deference to her father's brother, she would not show her true form to Odysseus, at whom Poseidon smoldered on, until the kingly man came home to his own shore.